Middletown Township Public Library is a civic institution that provides materials, ideas, information, technology, and cultural opportunities to enrich, empower, and educate. July 17, 2013 meeting of the Middletown Public Library Board of Trustees is called to order. Adequate notice of this meeting was published in the Asbury Park Press on January 29, 2013, and the Independent on January 30, 2013, and posted in the library and at Town Hall on July 12th, and in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Roll call. Mr. Seaver?
Present.
Mr. Nelson?
Here.
Mr. Shivitz?
Here.
Mr. Monahan?
Here.
Mr. Cordiano?
Here.
Mr. Kansas?
Present.
Ms. Breen? Ms. Wilson? Mr. Fiore?
Here.
Also present, Mr. McCummer?
Here.
Ms. O'Neill? And Ms. Latona. Flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public session on agenda items, statements of the public. Board encourages public participation. Individuals wishing to address the board shall be recognized by the presiding officer and shall give their names, addresses, and shall be recognized by, addresses, and the group, if any, that they represent. Each speaker is asked to speak no longer than 5 minutes and limit their remarks to the items on the meeting agenda. The board may not respond to questions during the public participation portion.
I have a question.
Just step up to the microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have a question regarding whether or not this is applicable. You're saying limit comments to what is on the agenda. My understanding is that one of the things that will be on the agenda tonight will be a discussion of whether or not basically the conversations that happened by email. Is that correct? At this meeting, that will be on the agenda for this meeting?
To the extent that there's any discussion related to litigation, personnel issues, any contractual issues, any of those items will be discussed in executive session.
Okay, my understanding of the Rice notice, and this is why and again, when we talk about what's on the agenda for the meeting, wouldn't the executive session include part of the agenda?
There will be a resolution to go into executive session, which will be...
Here's where I'm going to go with this. First, let's start with the Rice notice. I'm advised that the Rice decision allows a public employee to require that discussion of terms of employment with regard to that employee occur in public session. So was the Rice notice clear about that? Because it is supposed to be, and it appears from a recent news article, and I know they get things wrong all the time, that the letter notified Ms. O'Neill that the discussion would occur in executive session without giving her the option.
The board isn't going to entertain any questions or colloquy or dialogue about personnel matters, contractual issues.
Okay, so I'll have to, I did check on what the Rice decision was, and I'll check again because that's not what I was told. So I have a few things I want to clear up because there's been a lot of things that have been shared recently, and as long as you're going to be talking about it later, let's clear those things up right now.
Well, just as a point of order, I thought this was limited to agenda items of discussion.
There are things you should know before you go into discussion. So I'm going to make my statements. If you want to try and stop me, that's fine. But, you know, here I go. Regarding the WC workers' comp insurance estimate, first off, it's an estimate, not a quote, and I'm not sure that's clear for all of you. An estimate is not an offer of insurance. The email from NJM specifically stated for illustrative purposes only, and that they were not providing a quote. I was clear, I was just looking for a ballpark estimate, and I was accommodated. No confidential information was provided to or received from the insurance carrier, and that was made clear to Mr. Fiore last fall when he was sitting in for a member of the mayor's appointee at a library board meeting. All right, it was made very clear, and anyone could have taken the initiative to obtain the estimate, including any member of the board. The estimate demonstrates that the significant overcharge in the township charge back to the library for workers' comp coverage, and that was the point of obtaining it. I didn't think you'd take my word for it. I thought you might take somebody else's. And the loss experience, by the way, was provided by the township via Oprah request, and those reports comprise the bulk of the printed materials that were released. Now, since 2010, I've done an awful lot of other research regarding township operations, regarding their insurances, regarding their bonding, a lot of hours spent on this. I have the right to do that, it's part of my education. I see it as important. And I've done a lot of research that I've presented to the board over the last year where my knowledge was useful in analyzing the accuracy of chargebacks. Given my knowledge of operations, insurance, and distributions, I sought to advise the board. Unfortunately, the majority on this board showed no interest in the information I provided. I recall even being scolded for being repetitive. And the only agenda, I've been accused of having an agenda or a cause. So ridiculous. The only agenda or cause I had was to seek accuracy in the numbers. And the majority on this board showed much less interest. In an email to Ms. O'Neill in June of 2012, I stated, and I believe this email was probably either not provided or pulled, I stated the following: I think it matters a whole lot if what was provided to you is accurate or fair, even if some board members don't feel it should be questioned. And something else I've been wondering is this: are the trustees in violation of library law or remiss in their official duty by not doing anything about this? It goes on, but that's the gist of it. There have been plenty of accusations as well that confidential information was shared, but not one concrete example given, not one. And it's time that was done so we can finally have a real conversation about what is and is not public information. A lot of reasons have also been tossed out there as to why information should be considered non-public, like if it hasn't been discussed in a public meeting or if the entire board has not formed an opinion. Neither is the test for what is and is not public. Else the hundreds of public records that are never discussed at public meetings would not be public. We wouldn't even have a right to know about them according to Mr. Fiore, yet they exist and they are public records. Records are public unless specific exemptions or exclusions apply. The members of this board, and just to finalize my comments here, I believe that the members of this board need to keep in mind that in openly discussing public information, no laws are being broken. Be careful where you find fault, as you may be running afoul of the First Amendment.
Mr. McCumber, I respectfully ask, based on the fact that we're not going to follow the procedures put forth towards this public comment portion, that I, again, as I submitted in the December meeting that I did attend, not as the mayor's designee, but as the mayor of that meeting, I again submit to you that the statements of overcharging is erroneous, was completely, on 3 different occasions, I will submit it again for the record, were completely accepted by the Finance Committee and by the Township, were reviewed thoroughly, and any accusations as such, I feel are just mislabeled and not in good order. So I'd like to put that on record once again.
There was plenty of documentation provided to the opposite.
Ma'am, you had your chance to speak. Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Yes, my name is Elizabeth Mitchell. I've lived in this township of Middletown since 1967. I was employed as an adjunct instructor at Baum University and for about 40 years as an English instructor at Ocean County College. I am deeply concerned about the issues of free speech, which I have spoken on publicly and sometimes in very controversial situations throughout my career. I have a high opinion of the library and the way that it has been run during my nearly entirely adult life in this township. I do not like the tone of the kind of commentary that is coming from certain committeemen, and it does not seem to be being responded to by the trustees of the library. I guess in terms of the agenda, what I would be speaking to is your mission statement. And it seems extremely startling to me that anyone would expect the head of the library to be passive or to be unconcerned about issues that affect the funding of the library. What would you think of a football coach whose team, let's say it was a high school coach, whose team fumbled and lost and did not go through proper training processes season after season, and the coach said, well, I'm an impartial person, I'm just in favor of athletics, and I pride myself on my detachment from the whole concern. I think any public librarian, much less the head of the library, should receive a hero medal for standing up for public funding for the library, for wanting open public records when it comes to shutting down branch libraries, who would communicate with people who might be concerned about the fate of the library. I think that's a vocation. And you're very lucky if you have someone who regards a job as a vocation. Some businessmen are like that. I mean, they really want to serve the public. They don't look at it as simply a cash transfer concern. The best doctors, the best teachers have a big investment in the concerns that they are employed in, and that is certainly true for a library. I think we're all dealing with a kind of stereotype of librarians that is terribly outdated. I mean, I look at this report that came out, I guess in the email of the Asbury Park Press. It says that Susan O'Neill played more than just a passive role in the library imbroglios. Well, let's hope that it's more than a passive role. If the head of the library is not concerned about the fate of the library, you've got a huge, huge problem. And you should be supporting her to the max. Now, I do not have any personal connection with Susan O'Neill. I belong to a discussion group that meets monthly to discuss, major books, and the discussions there are focused on the books. I do not know any of the other people who've been involved in the issues that you've been discussing. But I think behind all of it is a terribly important principle that has to do with apparently not expecting leadership from the people that you've hired to be leaders. I mean, it just seems, incredible to me.
Just conclude your statement shortly.
Okay, I will very quickly. I'd like to make an analogy. And this has to do with the statement that Susan O'Neill approved the closing of the branch libraries and then backed off from that. If you had a prisoner and you locked the prisoner in a cell and you gave them a choice between water or food and they choose water, then would you accuse them of deliberately starving themselves to death? Because it seems to me that that is the kind of irrational logic that's going on here, where somebody who has their budget cut is then criticized for making decisions about what can be accomplished with diminished food, a diminished budget. And so I think it's time for a wake-up call. I am really alarmed at what you are letting happen here.
Anyone else like to speak?
Agenda.
Stafford?
On agenda items only, please.
Leo Gustavo, 121 Cranberry Court, regarding the agenda items that the speakers before me spoke on. I'd like to address similarly, there's issues raised. I support the sentiments of free and open discussion. In the newspapers, it seems that Susan O'Neill has been accused of several wrongdoings. I suspect in an executive session, if not tonight, sometime, you're going to discuss the personal matters affecting her and others on this board. I would say that no one standing at this microphone is going to restore the good name of anybody in this room, bar none. Therefore, at a minimum, this board needs to consider calling for initiating some kind of administrative investigation where there are interrogatories presented to unaccused respondents who are merely supposed to respond to the point of the question, so we get the questions that will deal with what Director O'Neill seems to want in the newspaper to stop the smearing of her good name and restore her good name. However, in doing that, there are certain people who have cited evidence that are not favorable to her reputation. And so when you investigate facts trying to restore the good name of the director, it may turn up some information that is bad. And at any rate, let the matters fall where they may. I think you people owe it to the public, the tax-paying public in Middletown, to conduct an investigation. When all the facts are known, you can report them to the public, and we'll know where things stand involving the people named in the public newspapers. At least 5 articles I've seen in the Asbury Park press. Lastly, the accusation in the newspaper that there's something wrong with wanting to, quoting the paper, roll the Middletown Township library system, including the branches, because that's what they were at the time, no longer existing. There's something wrong with rolling this over in the Monmouth County library system. I have stood in front of the freeholders. I have stood in front of the Middletown committeemen. I have stood before this board with other members asking that they consider on one condition, that if you can save the taxpayers' money by converting this township's library system to the county library system, do so. One condition, if it saves the taxpayers a significant amount of money. The big problem, last fact, I have talked to Lillian Berry, and I have found out, not through a direct statement flat out, but I said, is it possible? She explained the legal route, including having to go to a referendum on the ballot. So it doesn't matter what 5 committeemen want on the township. It's the voters in Middletown that will decide whether this library will or will not become a part of Monmouth County's library system, and that will depend not on the freeholders, but on the Monmouth County Library Commission. Right now, I know that the library system in the county is $2 million more in 2013 than they were in 2012. And the explanation to me why this library will not become part of the Monmouth County Library is as follows. It would cost the county too much, i.e. the salaries and benefits are too big, And when you make a library like this a branch and not a member, you have to pay the salaries and benefits. And I don't think the library commission in Monmouth County wants to take on the large salaries and benefits. Thank you for giving me the extra time, President. I appreciate it.
You were within your time. Thank you. Would anyone else care to speak on agenda items? Seeing that no one wants from the public would like to speak, we will be moving on our agenda. Any questions, comments about the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Closed session minutes? Motion to approve.
Motion.
All in favor?
If there's any discussion.
Any discussion, any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Financial reports? Any comments, questions?
Can I ask a question about 1273? The vendor is the director of books. Just want to get clarification as to what that is. Check number or voucher number, check number.
It's not a.
Page. You have a spreadsheet attached here. Vouchers, maybe a head. It's in the break checklist, yeah, 1275.
5B, section 5B.
Oh, that goes back to January. My recollection on that is that I bought some books for my book discussion group that we could not obtain from local vendors, and was reimbursed for that expense. That does occasionally happen. That's the only thing I can think of, Tony, because I
Oh, that's fine. I just-
don't recall specifically, but it does happen sometimes. I think weird things that we can't get from
That's what it's.
other sources. While you're looking at the documents, I just want to point a couple of things out to you. If you look at the piece that's got IVD, that says 4D, that's Mr. Nelson's financial summary of the various accounts that we have. I want to just bring to your attention under 3, the TD bank deposit. That's a general fund where we put our funds and copiers and things of that nature. It's one that goes horizontally. I just wanted to compare it with June, just to see if we're showing a little increase in income, because I did report to you that the receipts from filing copiers and the change in the printing costs and some of the other revenue streams that we had, we're bringing in about $1,500 more a month than we were at the beginning of the year. But we also have budgeted some items from there. So when you look at 3, that item number 3, the TD bank account, the July revenue, the total in the fund in the account is
$39,493. That's up about $2,500 from what it was the previous month. Just to know that, you know, that's where those monies are being deposited. And even though we are, you know, paying some budgetary items from there, that's the line to keep watching with respect to see if some of those things are, see if some of those revenues are showing up. The other thing I want to mention is there's the budget report, which is, let me see what number that one is. That one is 4C. That's our year-to-date budget report, and a week ago I received a notice from Mr. Tresente, who's our CFO, indicating that since the township budget had been approved, it was time for us to submit our specific line items so that they could be inputted into the Edmonds, the financial system that the township uses to pay our accounts. Did you have a question, Mike? Before I went on? I just want to let you know that I looked over these amounts. They are the chargebacks for 2013 are a little different than they were for 2012. There were some concessions that were given to the library based upon the discussion that we had in December of last year. Some things were eliminated, some things went down. The net effect on all of these chargebacks is, I think it's about $50,000 and change, with one exception. On line item, which I've called 286F, the employee health benefits, Mr. Tresente sent me an indication that charge would be $810,000, which is what it was last year. I asked him to investigate that because we did have an agreement at that meeting that the employee contributions, 2% would be deducted from that. So I will be presenting to you at the next opportunity the revisions in the budget to reflect that. And he has to work it out. It's not uncomplicated math, but our retirees are in it as well as current employees. So I'm waiting for a response from him, and I expect that it will be down from 810. It may not go as low as the 769, which was my estimate of what it would be, but there will have to be an adjustment there. But all in all, because the difference between the 810 and the 769 is 40,000, and I don't think that our 2% contributions are quite that much, but since I don't know all the retiree numbers, you know, he has to investigate that. So just want to let you know. Just when you think the budget is set, you still have to work on it a little more. But I'll keep you posted.
Any other questions? Any questions, comments?
Expecting for the order of revenues from?
I'm sorry, no,
On 40.
Dave, I didn't hear
On
that.
40, what were revenues from? Additional revenues on 40? The ones you're commenting on?
Yes.
Copy?
On 4, why is it going up from fine and copy?
No, what is it? It's from copiers.
Well, we call it fine and copier, but there are various other receipts of the rental books and the changes in the print costs going to their account. So we are seeing a little bit of an uptick from the first of the year.
Just so Susan, just going back a second on the line items with the charges for the township benefits. Looking at the memo here from Mr. Tresente, which I was copying on. So at 810, even with him calculating $810,000 for the health benefits, the reduction for 2013 stands at $50,000. $2,303 from
Yes,
last
it
year.
does.
And it should, which we did agree upon, letting the contributions also offset further that the employees are making. If that comes down any further, that would be in excess of the $50,000.
Yes, and that's
Just want
what
to make
we
sure.
agreed, because we didn't have numbers
Right, so
to reflect that. There was a little movement, you know, some of the administrative charges went down, the finance department charge went down, the others were right on with what we had last year.
any other questions or comments?
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to support finance statements.
Second.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Mr. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson? Mr. Cordano?
Yes.
Mr. Shiggy?
Yes.
Mr. DeSantis?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
No.
I will pass on to the director.
I have one thing to add to my written report, but I'll entertain any questions. I just do want to mention that as I was writing this, I said I was a little disappointed with respect to the applicants for our part-time library assistant openings, but then I made a little note that said, like, Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, a former employee came and said she was available. And I kind of turned that around a good bit, and so we had an action item later on to rehire that particular person. And I did a count in just the last couple of days. We're now up to 42 applicants. So I think the progress is better than I put in my report, that we would be able to find people with the kind of flexibility that I was hoping to find, because that's very important when we have call-outs and we're running a 9 to 12 operation for most of the week. And I'll give you a brief update on the Lincroft branch. I actually was there this afternoon. The Seabright volunteer corps that has been put together has been on site. Looks to me like they've packed about 1/2 of the book collection. I believe that they had secured the services of their local Department of Public Works to actually do not only the transporting of the materials into storage in Seabright until their library can get repaired, but also to take apart the steel shelving that is there. So none of the shelving has been touched. I was impressed with the volume of work that had been done over the weekend, and we'll touch base with them again about the next time that they plan to be there, because I think we're all aware that the township has brokered an agreement with the schools to use that facility. So at least I thought it was in the newspaper that they were going to use it for the crossroads.
Township hasn't made any official designation of what we're doing with the building yet. As a matter of fact, the agreement is not, I don't believe, been voted on yet with the Board of Education. So
Well, that would be good, because they're going to need a little more time to get the work done. Any questions?
Oh, okay, on to new business, approval of the contract with the CWA. I'm going to request that we just not approve that tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't had, number one, I don't think we looked to make sure that their numbers are correct, A, and B, I haven't had an opportunity to look at it yet. I don't think there are too many changes, but I would like to ensure that the memorandum of agreement matches the final CBA. So if we could just hold off on approving the contract with CWA, I don't think it's going to be prejudicial to either party. I'm sure Mr. Braun and the association local will not mind. But if we could vote on that at the August meeting, I would appreciate that.
I haven't even run the numbers.
Well, you're strengthening my argument. So I think we got it. I think I got it today. So you got it. I think today. So we don't have to table. It'll be again for the next meeting. By that point, I'm sure we'll have it ready to go. Thank you.
All business.
Okay, the internet access policy and the internet and computer user agreement were brought to you last month with the first one, the access policy being having just one typo and one minor addition. I think we had a fulsome discussion of it at that time. And just to remind you that on the access policy, the major change is to ensure that that internet users have to be users of good standing, which dovetails with our reduction in the account balances that we have been seeing. And that seems to, they've had some time to work with the public on that, and I think that I would recommend changes from what was submitted last time. And the internet and computer use agreement, there's a number of strikeouts because we felt that the policy had become outdated over time, and just simple elimination of them was the best way to go. The key element that's being added is that, again, to reiterate the cardholders in good standing, may have the internet access free of charge for 2 hours per day, plus be able to have one guest pass per day, and that guest passes for those who are non-residents shall be free but limited to one internet use session per day. And then in item 6, we did have a discussion to remove the word malicious to that phrase, malicious alteration, and went with any alteration to the system, and then putting the period after the word system. So let me just read what the final version is. Any alteration to the system's components, including software, hardware, or data of the system, is strictly prohibited. So our practice is to see if there are any additional changes, if not, then to actually vote on implementing this policy. Are there discussion points or questions still?
I think there was enough discussion. Is there any other comments? You have a chance to go. Roll call vote, please.
No.
I apologize.
Are you approving all 3 policies as part of this motion?
We could. We
Sure.
could move on to the next one.
Wait,
You want to do that?
It's up to the
We
board.
can group first.
Okay, number 2 is the second reading of the gifts and donations policy. And that, moving too fast. We didn't have a lot of discussion, and I think you all realize that the old one was woefully out of date, and seem to be pleased with that. We haven't, I have lengthy implementation notes for our employees, and so I would recommend that that be included as be approved. And then the proctoring test, this was approved with an implementation date of, to be implemented immediately, but with vetting it as changed. And that would read, the Middletown Township Public Library will offer test proctoring services to residents for $10 per test and to non-residents for $25 per test. This fee is due and payable at the time the proctoring is conducted. We had approved a policy, you had approved a policy at the time the proctoring is scheduled. It turns out that in the staff conversations, they realized we had mostly walk-ins at this point, and there were very few individuals who were scheduling in advance, and that could create a problem of taking money and holding it, and then tests being canceled, etc. Just for procedural purposes, I'd like for you to pass it this time with the word at the time the proctoring is scheduled to the time the proctoring is conducted. So with that one change. And
It says
yes,
here,
we-
it says here, before the proctoring will be conducted, not at the time.
Before we, I'm sorry.
So it would be before, you say, they would pay in advance of taking an exam, right?
Yes, like when they were, at the time the proctoring will be conducted. That's the new wording that was not approved last time. It was that the proctoring is scheduled. I'm sorry. At the time the proctoring will be conducted instead of at the time the proctoring is conducted. Mr. Cordiano is right. The wording is will be conducted.
You have at the time struck in your thing.
Right, it was at the time of the schedule, now it's before it's conducted.
Now it's going to be when it is to be conducted. At the time they
That's not what this says, though.
At the time they actually take the test.
You need to
You struck
that out.
and then you put before.
This fee is due and payable. What, all right. Let's strike the second sentence and convert it to, this fee is due and payable at the time the proctoring is conducted. How's that?
Wendy, did you get that?
It's right here.
Yeah, at the time the proctoring is conducted. I took out that before the proctoring will be conducted.
Is everyone clear on what it says now? What it will say?
What it's going to say.
What it's
What
going to say.
say.
What it's going to
At the
say.
time the proctoring is conducted, because we're getting mostly walk-ins.
Okay.
We have a motion to accept all three items?
Yeah.
Yes.
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second. Roll call vote.
Mr. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. DeKalb?
Yes.
Mr. Shivia?
Yes.
Mr. Cordiano?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson? Yes.
That's correct.
I'm sorry, what's the question? If we forgot to put something on the agenda, the answer is yes, we can go back.
It was in the packet,
Yes, we
but
can.
it was after the packet the agenda had been put together.
And this is new, under new business, and
Yes.
it's in the packet, so the board has it. Maybe Susan, you could just explain what it is.
Okay. That would be resolution 2013-29. As I mentioned in my director's report, we had a visit from Cecilia Cummings, who was a part-time library assistant, December, hoping to have a fairly long career with FEMA. And it turned out that her position was just eliminated. And she was a very valuable employee. We were very sad to lose her back in December. And came back with an employment application. And given the fact that we're right in the middle of an extremely busy summer, and she could step right back in without the additional time and cost of training, and was fulfilling a number of roles, but she had already been cross-trained in various areas. I said I would gladly hire her. So in the resolution then would be, as you see, to hire her as a part-time library assistant. That's a 17.5-hour job, with the salary schedule there. This is a replacement of Jonathan Kim, who was a part-time library assistant.
No benefits for that position?
No.
No. Well, there is a standard, they get some paid,
Right, no help.
no, they get some paid leave. But we would like very much to bring her back to the fold. And hope we don't have another storm, because then she'd be a trained female. No. Any questions about CC?
Is there a motion?
Motion. Second.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Kansas?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Shibians?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yeah.
Mr. Fiore?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
It was quiet.
Yeah. Like it. Public session? Would anyone like to speak? My name is Melanie Elmiger.
Yeah, no.
My name is Melanie Elmiger. My name is Melanie Elmiger.
I live at 43 Green Terrace in Lancroft. At one of the winter meetings, Mr. Seibert spoke about his library trustee training, and I'm wondering if this training is required of all the trustees that would serve on the library board. Is that a requirement of all the trustees to attend the training when they are appointed to the board?
Melanie, it is encouraged. And there are trustee institutes every other year sponsored by the New Jersey State Library. 2013 is not a year in which that institute was taking place, but the training that Mr. Seaver went to was from the New Jersey Library Trustee Association.
Okay, you have to be a member of that in order to get the training? Is that how that works?
No, but it's generally...
Are trustees typically members of the NJTLA?
Yes, they are. All our trustees.
All of them are members?
All of them are members.
Okay, well that gives me a good
And there
segue
is a
to...
state requirement that our board as a whole engage in 7 hours of additional training. It's part of the state aid requirement.
Oh, okay. Because I'm reading from the NJLTA website right now, because tonight I would like to talk about advocacy. Another speaker spoke about that this evening, and I just want to refer to the information from the handbook from their website. And here's what it says. Advocacy is a fundamental fiduciary responsibility of a library trustee To advocate for public library services is to make a successful case with elected officials for adequate and predictable financial support. When advocacy is relegated to the library director, that individual ends up in the unfortunate position of having to lobby for a budget that includes his or her own salary. Instead, trustees are expected to use their influence and connections to obtain the resources the library needs. At the local level, library trustees are expected to take full responsibility for advocacy with the support of the New Jersey Library Trustee Association, Friends of the Library, community influentials, and the general public. The reason why I bring this up is because this library has a major branding problem, and I've touched upon this at other meetings. And when people came out to speak out about the closures of the branches, you had a room full of advocates. And when I look back on any public relations or any kind of media outlets, I never see these trustees come out and say what an excellent, outstanding institution this library is, and look what we have built here. Look how amazing it is. Look at all the resources we give to the community. That's the word that needs to get out, because I advocate for the library. I've done more advocacy for this library in the last 2 years than any of these trustees collectively have done. And I'll compare it even to the freeholders, because the freeholders, Lillian Burry, I see her all the time with her library touting all the excellent work that they've done here. And they get the media coverage, and they get the reporters out there, and they put out press releases and that. What are you doing to advocate for the excellent work of this library? This branding problem is an issue because it's all about perception. I talk to people all the time and I say, you know, do you go to the library? What do you use the library for? Do you help to support the library? Do you pay your fines? You know, we have these discussions, and you know what people say to me? They say, I am not giving a dime to that library because the township's just going to take it. And these are people that give hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So whether you think that's the truth or not, or whether somehow people have been misled or information got out erroneously, what needs to happen here by this board is to go out and market this library and spread the word to the public that you are vital and that you are important and you are essential, because the discussions I've heard among these board members in the last several years has been, you know, the library is really not that important. There's e-readers, there's the internet. So why do we even need a library? They don't really know. I don't think a lot of these trustees know the day-to-day work that's done in this library. They need to be educated, they need to be trained, and they need to be aware, and they need to be present here to see the work that gets done and why people like me feel that this library is essential to the quality of life in Middletown. And I'll say one more thing about something else that was touched upon, which is access to information. One of the problems with the agendas at these meetings is that when the first public session comes, we can only ask questions on agenda items if we understand what the agenda item is and the information is available. Now, township committee meetings, oftentimes you can ask questions, but your agenda specifically says that the board may not respond to questions. So I feel that the public is forced to do the research and gather the data and get as much public information that they can prior to these meetings because of the way that the meetings are conducted. So that is a problem from the public standpoint, that we don't know what information we need because you're going to vote upon those decisions before we are educated about them. And it's about education, about knowing what the issues are and knowing what the facts are, because I never get up here and say something that is blatantly untrue. I do my homework. I've shown you my 3-inch binder at township meetings that I research everything, because I don't want to be accused of saying something that's blatantly false. And if I hear a rumor, I want to make sure I go to sources that know about that, and that's at the Open Public Records documents. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
There we start with 121 Cranberry Court. Director O'Neill, in a previous meeting, made a statement that the homeschooling in Middle Township was increasing greatly. I don't remember exact words, so maybe I'm overstating it, but it seemed to me it would be a significant number. I called the business administration of the Board of Ed and asked what was the number of homeschoolers throughout this academic year we passed through. The answer came out of the business administrator's office, Vinnie Daniels and Amy Gallagher, 8. I made a statement to Vinnie Daniels that I wish there were a lot more families homeschooling for the simple reason that these people who homeschool are prime candidates for college admissions. They just love homeschool children, and the homeschooling families continue to pay $10,000 or more in taxes to the school board, and yet are not sending the children to the school. So it's a double whammy. They're really fine people. We should advocate for people who are contributing mightily to the school system. So I just thought I'd pass that on. I don't know why the number was, the idea was mentioned that homeschooling is on a large increase. Regarding the administrative investigation, I asked for perhaps the people who are held to be accusers of Director O'Neill in their accusations, they may be vindicated, and they need vindication because they have also been countered, argued in the newspaper. So you have to set the record for both sides who are in positions of accusation. Clear the air, and let's restore reconciliation and peace amongst all the citizens of this township, even those who don't use this library.
Anyone else like to speak?
I want to touch upon something that Ms. Elmiger raised, and I want to, can I speak? I don't want to trivialize the point that was made, but I've always been confused by the way the agenda is conducted with regard to the public comments. And I think, and I'm not sure if this is required by the Open Public Meetings Act, but I think when we start getting into the public session on agenda items, a lot of people come to the meetings and they want to talk, and there's something important that brought them here, and they want to be heard. And then when they start to speak, if it's not an agenda item, we're told that it's unrelated, that this isn't the time that they have to wait until the end if it's not an agenda item.
Not tonight.
Presumably it's broken apart because we're going to be voting on it. They should have their comments before we vote. So it gets confusing. It gets a little adversarial sometimes. And then we get to the end and it happens all over again. Do we have to split it like that? Is there any way we can consolidate the public comments section and maybe put it on the front end? So they're heard on agenda items, they're heard on things that we're voting for, and you know what, they can be heard on anything. And just do the public comments at the beginning, so just to make it easier for the public to be heard, because they want to talk about it.
All I can tell you is, we're required to have a public comment section. Almost virtually every board that I represent sets it up that way, where you have public comment on agenda items and public comment on non-agenda items at the end. Which seems logical. I understand what
It
you're
seems
saying.
logical, but doesn't this happen at every meeting where
It occasionally happens. I have to say tonight was a very, we have a clever audience and calling the agenda item the mission statement, which is a lawyer. I mean, I have to say that was excellent. I hadn't heard that one before, because that does open it up a bit.
it does, it should be a public session on agenda items to be voted upon.
That's right. That's right. But it's a clever audience. But we can certainly, again, most boards do it that way, and we can certainly look at that.
Are you saying only want to have one?
It seems to make sense, because it seems like
I think the point of that is that there are times, people come to hear sometimes what's on the agenda, and if you combine the public comment section into one big section, it can go on for some time on items that aren't on the agenda. People are waiting to see what the board's going to do, and you want to get the agenda items out of the way. You want to hear public comment, do the agenda, and if there's discussion later on things that have nothing to do with anything, you don't necessarily want to keep people here for that. I think that's the theory. But I don't think that's set forth in the Open Public Meeting Act that you have to have two public comment sessions, one on non-agenda.
You don't have to have two. I don't know where you have to have a public.
I don't think there's.
Sometimes it's a point of confusion for those part of the public, and sometimes.
I don't think you have to divide it in that way. Some boards actually have, they have a public comment and then they have questions later on. They do that. I can canvass my boards and tell you what if there's anybody else doing things differently.
And if it's public comment on agenda items, when does the public have access to the agenda?
Well, remember that this is a, I'm sorry.
On the website.
Yeah, typically it's on the website. This is not a 48-hour meeting, so there's we do provide agenda information, but it's not like a 48-hour meeting where you have to post the agenda.
Customarily, when was it posted prior to the meeting?
I post it usually the Friday before the board meeting, by the end of the day, because that's when the packets go out, so in case there's any changes, the agenda or whatever, and then I put it onto our website before I leave for the day.
Yeah, that seems to be something.
And that gives them the whole week to review it and then, be prepared for Wednesday.
Moving on, we will be moving into executive session. The Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 1046, allows for the exclusion of public or portion of public meeting in certain matters which might endanger the public interest or risk affirmation of individual rights are discussed, and the Board of Trustees of the Middletown Township Public Library wish to discuss the following matters in a non-public closed meeting, resulting discussion being made public when a proper conclusion has been reached and there is no longer need for confidentiality. Any pending anticipated litigation or contract negotiations other than collective bargaining contract negotiations in which the board is and or may become a party or any matter falling within attorney-client privilege to the extent confidentiality is required in order for the attorney to exercise his or her ethical duties as an attorney. Now therefore, be resolved, any matter involving the employment, appointment, termination, unemployment, and conditions of employment, evaluation, or disciplining of any specific employee unless the individual employee requests in writing the matter be discussed at a public meeting. Now, therefore, be resolved, the board will hold a closed executive session immediately. Here, it is anticipated that closed session will not last longer than 30 minutes. Action may be taken during the public portion of the meeting following recess of the executive session.
I'm sorry, excuse me? You're going to have another public session later tonight?
The resolution just says that there's a possibility that action may be taken upon resumption of the public.
You didn't answer my
portion of the
question.
meeting.
Are you going to be having another public session the same night, tonight?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
It sounds like you're stopping now to go into executive session, and then you're going to be resuming
I'll
public.
repeat myself. Did you not just read standard language, Mr. McCumber?
I did.
Which is from NJSA 4-, whatever
Yeah, it is.
in the resolution. So
I'm not clear. I'm sorry.
any time a board goes into executive session, the board also has the right to come out of executive session after 30 minutes or before the executive session is over and reconvene a public session. Is that correct?
That is
And
correct.
is that different than any other meeting that is ever done, Mr. McCumber?
No, certain
Thank
meetings
you,
we would
sir.
say that there will be no further action taken, we will adjourn, but this is pretty standard in the case.
Thank you, sir.
And I would also add 30 minutes is an estimate. Okay? Our best estimate.
Is there a motion?
May I ask a question before you close this meeting? What is the likelihood you're going to go into public
There's a motion and a
session again?
second.
Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Was David? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Shibbius.
Here.
Mr. Coriano.
Here.
Mr. Fiore.
Here.
Mr. Monahan.
Here.
Ms. Wilson. Here.
Okay, thank you very much. Coming out of exec, we just have one additional motion, and I'll just read it very briefly. Be resolved that the Middletown Township Library Board of Trustees appoints the law firm Cleary, Giacobbe, Alfieri, Jacobs, LLC of Mattawa, New Jersey, as special labor counsel to the Board of Trustees on an ad-need basis at a rate of $1.45 an hour through December 31st, 2013. Be it further resolved that the President of the Board is hereby directed to execute an agreement for the provision of said professional services and all other action necessary consistent with effectuating the resolution. So if I could just get a motion and a second on that, that'd be great.
Motion.
Any further discussion?
You want a roll call?
I would like a roll call.
Mr. Seaver?
Yes, so would you.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Kansas?
Yes.
Mr. Shibbius?
Yes.
Mr. Coriano?
Yes.
Mr. Fiore?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson? Thank you.
And Mr. President, I have nothing further.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, he's asking why, like, is there a particular issue?
No, just on an ad-need basis. It's a township labor council.
Do you hire someone that's right here, or?
I think they've used them in some point in the past, I'm not sure, but it just, like I said, just hire, making sure that we have it professionals. On as needed.